Hello, and happy Christmas, everyone. It's great that you're joining with us this evening. I've got Mark with me, who I'm going to have a little chat with in a few moments. Hi, Mark. So, if you've not, so I think our first broadcast that we're going to be doing, we're going to be hopefully doing a few of these over the course of the winter months. We thought it'd be nice to kind of motivate the running community. So, if you've got any questions this evening, then do pop them up in the chat. We're also going to be recording this as well, so you can check in with it. So for those that are tuning into this in the recorded version, welcome. So as I say, so we've got Mark Hadaway, who's one of the Run the Wild guides, but more importantly, he's a really experienced coach. You've been coaching for 20 years, something like that. Is that right, Mark?
Yes, Simon. Thanks very much for bringing that one up. But yes, it's been a few years, and 20 years there or thereabouts, and very enjoyable years too, and lots of learnings along the way.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I think one of the key parts of certainly running this year, and guys, yeah, it's really great to hear from you. If you want to pop in your chat, join us obviously on Facebook. Tell us where you're watching us from. That'd be great to hear. So hello to Catherine, who's joined us from Great Kings Hill. I can see there's a few members of the Run the Wild community as well in there from local in the Chilterns, but let us know where you're watching from. And we'll give you a shout out as well. So also, if you've got any questions, we can pop those up in the chat. So, but yeah, over those 20 years, I'm sure, Mark, the main thing about coaching people is probably motivating them, right, to get out there and do the sessions and all that kind of thing that goes alongside it. So, first question from me is, did you have any goals for 2021?
Well, let me just pick you up on something there, Simon. I've just seen a comment come through there, a comment which is addressed to me, I think. I don't look a day over 18. Well, should we stop the broadcast now? But that's very kind of you, whoever said that. Goodness.
No one said anything about me, though, Mark, I noticed.
No. Well, I'm taking that comment from me. But first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on, Simon, joining you on this. And it's... kind of the psychology, the goal setting over the years has become a massive kind of interest or part to play in the fitness world for me. You kind of realise that we've got loads of fantastic exercises, ways to do things, different ideas, different scientific approaches. But what sits behind everything ultimately is kind of your mindset, what you want to do. So it's great to have be discussing this today. And for me, 2021 it's an interesting one, because this is going to sound quite counterintuitive now. But in terms of my sort of fitness goals, it was very much about enjoyment. I wanted to get out there, have a big smile on my face, whatever I did, cycling, or running, or any other kind of physical education that I did, exercise-wise, circuits, all this kind of stuff. And there's a simple reason for that. There was an awful lot going on in life. Moving house, 2 young kids, job changing. I just didn't need the extra stress of having to focus and train, really solidly for something. And that's, something we'll come on to discuss. But for me, it was all about enjoyment, putting a big smile on my face, whatever I did. And certainly with the trail running side of things, absolutely kind of mind space for me, getting out there in the hills, in the mud, and just, with friends and just enjoying it, really. So that was very much 2021 for me.
And I'm impressed because I don't think you mentioned COVID there, which is great. So yeah, it gets mentioned far too much at the moment, but obviously we hope everyone is safe and well and able to get out over Christmas, and hopefully weren't sitting at home quarantine. But obviously a difficult time. So my next question for you, because this is all about this kind of, we've got about half an hour, we're going to be chatting about how to stick to running goals. Now, part of obviously this time of year is setting New Year resolutions, so you might be one of those persons that set New Year resolutions in the past, you might not be. But Mark, do you think you'll set a New Year's resolution? Are you a pro New Year resolution, or you're not so sure?
Oh, well. Right. Okay. So a few thoughts on this. It's 1st of January, new year, new start, new beginnings, all this kind of thing that gets batted around. It's a line in the sand, isn't it, for all of us? But the big but is I'm all about kind of goal setting. New Year's resolutions typically fall into the kind of category, and hey, this is a sweeping generalisation, so those on the call might think differently, but they're typically very negative. They're usually about giving something up or not doing something, and there's not a lot of focus on kind of the end goal or the reasons why or the enjoyment factor. And again, I know these are points we're going to discuss, but I certainly agree. It's a good time to kind of set those new goals moving ahead. But what is it you want to do rather than what you don't want to do? And I think that's so important with any goal setting, any kind of vision, whatever you want to achieve in life. And we talked off air a moment ago, didn't we? And it said, it's a classic time of year, two kind of big things, dare we say, again, sweeping generalization. It's sort of, kind of weight loss, or it's give up drink, because we've all had a great time during December, where we've perhaps done, maybe a little bit too much of that. But of course, at the time, what's your house full of now and will be for, the next few months? You're surrounded by all of those temptations. So it gets kind of even harder to do these things. So just need to be very mindful. Not everything changes on the 1st of January. You still have, all the duties around the house. You still have kind of, all the relationships that you maintain. You've got the family, you've got the job. That all of a sudden hasn't changed unless you're starting a new job and all the rest of it. So you just have to be very mindful that you don't just flick a switch and everything changes and all of a sudden I am whatever it might be, the world's greatest marathon runner. That's a process, and there's lots of things that need to fall into line. So don't heap too much pressure on yourselves kind of overnight.
I think that's a really good point. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone, basically, give us a thumbs up if you're going to set a New Year's resolution. Let us know. And whilst you pop that into the comments, and by the way, hello to Sandra from Hemel Hempstead and Mel from Ware. Welcome, guys. And we've also got Chris from near Whipsnade Zoo. Very good. I hope you're not in the zoo. But yeah, so let us know whether you're going to be setting a New Year's resolution. And I've got some interesting statistics, if statistics are interesting. And that is over half the population will set a New Year's resolution according to a recent poll. And what's quite interesting as well is that this poll is often done in November. And actually only around about half of those people will actually set a New Year's resolution. So just between November and the end of the year, I think about half people realize they don't want to do a New Year's resolution. But actually more and more people are setting New Year's resolutions. 43% of all resolutions are health related. So maybe, looking at how people eat, but the majority of those are still exercise related. So it might be, I don't know, setting running a 10K or running a half marathon, or it might be, not just distance, it might be time related, lots of different kind of reasons. And I thought I'd share with you some statistics as well around actually people's ability to keep these resolutions. So in the UK, around 25% of people keep them for the whole year, which I thought was quite impressive, really. 25% don't even start them, don't even bother. And around about 50% actually, kind of get some of the way, they do a little bit. And we can break that down a little bit further. And around about 75% of people that actually set a resolution are still going after the end of week one. Fantastic job. That drops off to about 65% after 1 month. And then that gets down to around about that 50% after 6 months. So you can see that really it's sort of, if you can keep it going for just over a month, then you're probably going to see it through to half the year. And that says something a little bit about habits as well. So I think there's this common theory around, if you can keep something going for 6 weeks, then it's going to become a little bit habitual in your life. So that's one thing. And then another one, this one might be for you, Mark, and I know you don't like resolutions, but here we go. So for those people that didn't set a resolution at all, but had a similar goal, so thinking kind of more about your mindset and approaching to resolutions, is that only 10% of those had completed the goal. So that's compared to, in theory, 25%. Statistics, who knows? But certainly it's, the theory being that resolution does help. But it depends on your personality type, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So here we go. We've got some people posting up their resolutions in the chat here. So we've got here we go. We can put that, Jill. So you try cross country for the first time. Fantastic. We've got Sandra's keep up with strength training. I think that's really, really good. That's something our experience at Run the Wild, hasn't it been, Mark, and with Trail Fit, that even with myself as well included here, just don't do enough strength and conditioning. And very sensible here from Celine. So looking for easily achievable. I like this. And we're going to talk about this sort of talk about SMART goals in a minute. So excellent. So thanks for telling us your resolutions there. We're gonna talk about why people fail. So we're going to address why people fail. Then we're going to go on to the reasons of how to be successful. I think that's quite good. So we're going to finish on a really positive note as well. And yeah, guys, keep letting us know where you're dialing in from, watching us. Hi to Linda from St Helens and Kate from Mark Yates. So yeah, let us know where you're dialing in from this evening. So why do people fail? And Mark, I think I'm going to get you to interject here as well into why we think that happens. So the first one was not being patient and expecting the result in an instant. Oh, don't we live in that society now that we must have it instant? Yeah. Okay. So what do we think? What do you think about that, Mark?
Hey, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but things take time. There is absolutely no harm with setting yourself something that, a goal is always all about kind of outside of your comfort zone. It's got to be something that, fills you with fear to a degree, exciting fear, if you like, something that you can't just step out the door and achieve tomorrow. But you've got to be patient with that. It can't just happen. Again, we use that terminology, flick the switch on the 1st of January and all of a sudden I am whatever it might be. You've got to build up to these things. And if it's something that, you've positioned correctly and is really meaningful to you, and we'll talk about the emotional attachment very shortly, you'll get there. And, learn from other people, scour, the internet. There's loads of resources out there in terms of specifically for running, how you could be training, but also with that, be very, very conscious that it's you. You are not somebody else, your friend who's told you to do X, Y, and Z. You are not the same as an elite athlete who trains and sleeps and eats, and that's all they do. So you just have to position things correctly for you. And I'll say it again, make sure you enjoy what you do. Yeah. Because again, going out the door for that first day and time again, hear these things, have witnessed these things. It's, it's only round the block. It's whatever it might be. It's 2K, it's 3K. You're forgetting that, sometimes these things haven't occurred for many years in your life. And it's almost kind of putting the reins on and just saying, hey, yeah, run, walk it, jog it, walk it first of all. Yeah. For a lot of people, sometimes these challenges, it's great that we're runners and we love running, but sometimes, hey, what about if you just walk the path or the route first and then kind of interspersed a bit of running into it and then maybe ran it for the full. So it is just breaking things down into small chunks, the enjoyment factor, come back from that run feeling good about yourself rather than broken and, oh my God, I never want to do that again. And all of a sudden, that momentum starts to build.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. I see it in races. I've seen it in myself as well. That whole patience thing, patience and pacing, they kind of all go together. So yeah, we just live in a microwave society. What does that mean? We just expect everything instant to go ping, right? So, you know, and that's just something that we've got to fight a little bit against. These things take time. So I've got some other reasons why people fail. Sorry, just starting with the sad news, but you know, we're unfortunately probably all used to this kind of thing by now as humans. So not having an accountability structure, we're going to talk about that in a bit. I think that's a key one. That's a really key one, like not having an accountability structure. Not focusing on the process, just the outcome. So I just want the end goal. I'm not really interested in interacting with the process to get there. That's all I want. Okay, that was certainly my experience when I was doing the UTMB, and that's why it didn't go so well. But anyway, not believing in yourself, that's another key one. And I can imagine that being a really big thing after the 2 years that we've had around COVID and all of those things. You know, anyone that's gone through disappointment in their life, which I think is probably 100% of the population of planet Earth at the moment. You know, you might have that unconscious fear of succeeding, not enjoying the process. That's another one. Overthinking it. So perhaps overcomplicating, you know, your training or your goal, not scheduling in the process. So you might have this amazing goal to, I don't know, run 7 marathons in 7 days, but you know, you work an 80-hour week and you've got 10 kids, and you know, you've just got to kind of think about how that's all going to fit into your lifestyle, because that's I think that's another thing we're going to talk a little bit about. Your goal needs to become part of your lifestyle, and this is the whole balance between New Year's resolution and actually it becoming a kind of like a lifestyle goal. And you know, and we've talked a lot about it in the press, where things like a diet can be quite negative because it's, you know, it's just all the pressure on this one aspect of who you are as a person. So one of those things. A couple of other ones here which I think are often forgotten. Not tracking your progress. So, you know, we've got some really good watches out there that exist, or you can just go old school and write stuff down. You know, how did it feel at the end of your run? Things like that. And then the final one, a really, really big one, is understanding why you want to achieve the goal. So people failing because they didn't understand why they wanted to achieve the goal. And I'll relate my experience back to the UTMB again on this one. So basically, I wanted to give up after halfway, and because it was hard. And I remember this guy running past was like saying, "What are you doing? Why are you walking?" And I was like, "Well, to us, I'm just walking to the next checkpoint. I've had enough. I'm giving up." And he's like, "You mean you didn't think it was going to be hard?" And it was a bit of a wake up call. It's like, you can't just give up because it's hard. You can give up if you're really badly injured, or if you're a pedigree athlete nowadays and you don't want to get the negative connotations of points on a DNF. That's a whole different side story. But that wasn't relevant to me. But yeah, so kind of perhaps not understanding why you want to achieve the goal, like digging down and getting that emotional connection, and obviously the pros and cons that come with that. So back to you, Mark. Enough of me chatting. Whilst you chat about this, Mark, and what your thoughts are and why people, let's maybe pick up on, you know, the kind of actually why you want to achieve the goal. The last thing, why, you know, the sports psychology of that. Then there's a big part we don't really talk about in running, unless you're a pro athlete. But the sports psychology, we feel it, but we don't talk about it much, do we?
No, absolutely. And hey, it's a huge piece of the jigsaw. Why we do things, our behaviours, and hey, we could get very deep, but we probably won't go too deep this evening, because that's you know, a session in itself. But you know, what drives you as an individual is so important. It's really interesting looking at some of the comments coming through here. You know, enjoy running more with friends, personal challenges. There's a bit about the fear factor, scared of finishing last or getting left behind and lost. There was another comment I saw a bit further down, which was about pacing, so kind of overexcitement or overexuberance at the beginning of a race. Building in rewards, hey, what a fantastic sort of thing to think about as well. Because as runners, and again, you know, sweeping generalizations here, but we run, we look at the stopwatch, we kind of get absorbed in that kind of what I call a comfortably uncomfortable zone where, you know, I've got a spare hour. I go and do my route that takes me an hour. It's at about a kind of, you know, level 7, 7.5 on a scale of 1, super easy, 10 monstrously hard. I fall in there. It makes me feel good. You know, I've had a workout, and we become kind of victims because then we look at the watch and think, oh, you know, nothing's improved. And I start kind of beating myself up a little bit. And you can kind of get really drawn into that as a runner. I'm sure we've all been through these kind of cycles where it's, oh, making no progress. You know, I'll work harder, I'll train harder. I'm getting even worse. I'm getting injured. I'm getting ill now. And actually, at those times, that's when you kind of want to ease off and actually say, hey, I'll give myself a bit of a rest here, a bit of a break, and I'll go and run some trails, or I'll do something different. And I think that, you know, that ties in massively with the kind of fitness or physical element of your training, i.e. having that variety. Because it's great having this end goal, this driver, this thing within us that says, I really want to do this or achieve this. But you've got to plan it out and phase it and do it step by step and enjoy the process along the way. Because if I go out and I've got this goal of whatever it might be, running a marathon, and you know what? I'm 2 weeks in, I'm hating the program. I know I've got another 12 weeks of just, horribleness. Get out, you know, to actually, you know, tell my kids, hey, you know, I'm going to go out for an hour's run, which I'm really not going to enjoy. I'd much rather be kind of, you know, jumping around and bundling with you guys. So you've got to have something that you enjoy. And it might not be, again, we've already touched on it, the same as what everyone else is doing. But hey, do you know what? For me, that's working and that's making me smile. And, you know, I'm giving myself those rewards, coffee and cake I see coming through there. I mean, I love that. Why not? Hey, Don't beat yourself up.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the process. Make it fun, do what we want to do. And again, with that goal, share it and make sure you've got the infrastructure around you. Simon's already touched upon it. That kind of reality of, hey, I need 12 hours a week to train. Now, schedule that in, or at least draft out your typical week as it currently stands. And have I physically got 12 hours that I can spare? Now, many arguments to say 24 hours in a day, half of it we typically spend sleeping. So argument would say, if it's something that's really driving me and I'm super passionate about, I will make it happen. And if that means I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, or that means I train at midnight, it doesn't really matter, because actually it's you doing it and it's what works for you. So if we've got that motivational element, that's something that we are emotionally attached to, that's really driving us, we can vision it, we can see it, whether it's us coming over the finish line, the middle, going around the neck, how we feel, what it means to us, what it means to the family, our support crew, I don't know, the big party afterwards. All of these things stack up to create that kind of overriding vision that says, I really want this. And if you really want it, you will make it happen in one way, shape or form.
And I think that's a really good point. I can see, like, in the chat here, so Catherine's not quite sure what drives her and how she works that out. And, you know, I think everyone goes on a different journey in this process, and I think everyone's journey is as valid as the next, right? So, you know, I think running has an emotional connection with us, and it's finding out where that reward comes from. So for me, you know, I moved away from races partly because of my injury and those sort of things that happened to me. So a big part of my reward for going out and just being in the outdoors, and I think you know, I think, Catherine, actually you alluded to it there. You said an escape from work and de-stress time. That's me. It's kind of like time where I reconnect to the planet, to myself. I kind of defrag, you know, literally. We talk about this state of soft attention focus. It's a theory. It's basically a way of relaxing our brains and kind of finding meaning. And they've, you know, again, there's a huge amount of work that started on this, but it's still very new science that, you know, that sense of well-being, if you're in the outdoors, and this is why I'm a massive fan of trail running, if anyone hasn't noticed yet. But trail running is such a good exercise because it gets you into the outdoors where we feel much better about ourselves. you know, wherever we started from, we might have been feeling really awful, we might be feeling okay, but it will still make an improvement to us. That's kind of like a guaranteed aspect of being in green spaces. Throw in some exercise on top, so you've got some endorphins kicking around when you finish, and then hopefully that will feed back on itself, won't it? It would just kind of like, that's the feeling that I'm looking for. And then there's other feelings that you might have in trail running, which don't happen always that often. This feeling of flow, of just kind of being present in the moment. And it's a little bit like a drug in the sense that it's quite addictive. You know, if you get that feeling of just, you know, you're just there, you in the trails running, and you're not looking at your watch, you know, you're just feeling that sense of movement. And I think, as Mark, you were saying, sometimes we get so kind of caught up in results and times and things like that, we lose that motivation. It's sort of like, it's all about the stats, it's all about that outcome and not the process. And this feeds back into all of those elements that, you know, that support us in trying to achieve those goals that we're working towards, right? So I think it's just, yeah, you know, I think there's some really good comments out there coming
there's some great comments coming through. And what I find really interesting, it probably goes back to your opening question to me, which said, what was your goal for 2021? I didn't have one. It was enjoyment. I just wanted to go running, enjoy it, de-stress from everything. And I think it was at Catherine a moment ago, there was a comment came through, and not kind of knowing the purpose of your running, but then also mentioning about kind of, you know, de-stress from work and things. It doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be, you know, a huge end game to this. You know, you don't have to run the ultra that seemingly everyone around you is doing. So don't get drawn into that. It's absolutely fundamental. Right, trail running or running, going out the door, whatever it might be, means this to me. And you know what? That means everything to me. Because if I can de-stress, if I can enjoy my running, if I can connect with nature, which I've just seen there as well, keep you sane, the knock-on implications of that, your half an hour, your hour that you grab 2-3 times a week, whatever it might be, on your life in general and all those around you is huge. So you don't need to, nothing needs to be overcomplicated, I think. And Simon's already mentioned that. There's loads of lovely, fancy fitness things, programs, all this kind of stuff that you can do, but you don't need to do it. And you just need to be confident that you are doing the right thing for you and not getting drawn into anyone else's business, for want of a better word. And it's so interesting because if you do enjoy it, and one of the, you know, key principles of fitness is consistency. And I found this, again, kind of me, but 2021, there were no plans. I didn't want to race. I just wanted to run, enjoy it, big smile on my face. Lo and behold, we now get to the tail end of 2021, and I'm probably physically in better shape than I have been for years just by running. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Hey, whatever I fancied and whatever.
That's why you look so young, Mark.
Sorry?
That's why you look like about 18, apparently.
Well, yeah, hey, that goes without saying. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting how that translates, that actually, you know, when you're not stressed about something, it's just happening. You're in kind of that state of, hey, I'm enjoying this. What do you know? All of a sudden, you kind of go into something in good stead. And hey, if I decide to kind of do events or flick the race switch in 2022, so be it. But at the moment, there's kind of no clear plans to do that. But I know that it will then be just a kind of few steps up rather than, you know, a massive mountain to climb.
Absolutely. No, I think there's a really, really good points. And guys, keep putting in the chat your thoughts on this. We really want to hear from you. Linda putting in a comment there about setting a realistic goal. And we're going to talk now as well about what kind of goals you should be looking to set up. If you are going to set up a New Year's resolution then, or set up a goal outside of New Year, then we're going to give you some top tips now on how to do that. And the other thing as well, Linda mentioned there, is things like park run, the inclusive nature of park run. And I'm going to add Run the Wild to that. You know, we don't do races at Run the Wild. So, you know, our tagline is exploring places, not running races. And it's part of that inclusive nature that we really encourage. And as a guide myself, I've certainly met quite a few people that have lost their love of running, and I think we all go through there at some point in our journey. You know, I remember January this year being, I almost converted back to road, to be honest, because I think it was so horrendously muddy. Yeah, I didn't, don't worry. But I was tempted briefly for a moment there. But it was just so muddy, and, you know, it was more like swimming through. It really was. I think anyone that was out there, well done, you're still standing upright. And I think it's just sort of kind of thinking about how that's going to play out into, you know, over the course of the year. I think it's really tough, but having an inclusive nature in Run the Wild, and I've met a lot of people that felt they've lost their mojo for running, and they come on the Run the Wild trip, and it's like, it's not a race, it's about being in the outdoors and experiencing that, finding out what the outdoors is to us, you know, learning about the environment. So you know, I think that's something where we can, you know, really help people you know, achieve their goals. It's just a facet of running. You know, races, we understand, is a big part of goal setting, but it doesn't have to be everything, and I think that's important, and ensuring that you're part of an inclusive community. And it's partly why we're doing these things, these online, and we're going to be doing a few more. If people find them interesting, we'll do a few more over the course of winter, that you feel connected, that you feel validated as a runner wherever you are on your journey. You are just as valid as Kilian Jornet or, you know, Kipchoge, any of those guys. You're just as valid as a runner wherever you are on that whole journey. So I think that's really important thing to take away. So we're going to be wrapping up with the big part of this and the positive things to take away. So what do we need to do in order to succeed in goals as well? So well, first, and quite a few people have been mentioning this here, and that is to identify a specific measurable goal, a SMART goal, right, Mark? So tell us a little bit about SMART goals.
Oh my word. Right. Okay. So yes, I mean, in essence, if you are looking to achieve a certain thing, then absolutely you should have it defined exactly what it is. It should be measurable, i.e. there is the deadline, achievable and realistic, and also timed. So if, for example, I go on today and I book myself a marathon in September, whenever it might be, I then work back from there to kind of put together my training plan. Again, sweeping generalization, marathon training plans, 12, 16 weeks of real focused, dedicated training. But what am I doing before that to condition myself to make sure I can actually get into that proper training phase? And also, again, consider everything around that. So September may be the end goal, but hey, what's happening during August? Hey, I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks. Okay, so how am I going to structure things there? Or, you know, how am I going to kind of juggle that training plan? Because I won't be able to follow it verbatim as is, maybe. So I need to make adaptations there. And you need to, again, be confident that you're not just taking necessarily something off the shelf and saying, this is me. Because it doesn't work like that. We all know that life gets in the way. But again, speak to some coaches, advisors, those who have done it before, but don't just pick up the blueprint and dump it on your lap and say, hey, that's me. Make sure it fits with you. Make sure you know where those kind of hurdles are. And they are hurdles. They're just hurdles. They're obstacles. You'll get around them. No two ways about it. And we prepare best we can. But yeah, make sure it's in the diary. We kind of got it all scheduled out. It's set. We know what we're doing. Share it with the wider community that you feel comfortable with, those who will support you, and go from there. So it's Absolutely. A great way to train, really is.
And I think, yeah, so, you know, if you're setting a goal, it needs to be something that, yeah, it's realistic, like you're saying, Mark, and it's measurable, it's specific. It's not just sort of kind of like I'm just going to do this. And it's, you know, for example, I'm going to use it as an analogy with people, say, looking to lose weight. And I'm not saying that's necessarily something that should even be a goal, to be honest with you. But people will sort of set I just want to lose weight, but they won't have necessarily a particular number. It won't necessarily be achievable. It won't be realistic. It won't have a time frame. It won't have all these other goals. So just using that as an analogy, and like I say, I'm not necessarily a big fan of those kind of goals anyway, but that might be familiar given what we see in the press a lot this time of year. But being really specific on your goal, part of as coaching, isn't it? Kind of looking at people's, is there a specific time that they want to get, and how do we get there from where we are currently? What pace does that translate to, when we're doing 1K and so on and so forth. So,
I think what's interesting. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say what's interesting with the example you've just used, and perhaps anything really, is what does that mean to you? Exactly what does that mean to you? And kind of one of the questions I always used to pose to people was, okay, so you've achieved your goal, whatever that may be, weight loss, whatever, you've run your 3-hour marathon. Look in the mirror now. See yourself, and what do you see? Is it something different? Is it a different feeling? Is it, rather than just the kind of, the physical appearance, whatever it might be, it's what does it really, really mean inside that counts. And if you can get to that point when you are training for something specific, then there are no two ways about it. Nothing will stand in your way in the best possible senses of the word. You will figure something out to work your way around life obstacles, everything else to get there. And when you do that, and it's that kind of scary goal, and I relate this back to kind of, Ironman for me, triathlon, started out, would I ever achieve it? Oh my God, on paper, you just look at it and go, that is ridiculous. But when you get to that point and you do it, it's like, wow, that is just amazing. And I'm sure you've had the same, Simon. I'm sure loads of people on this call have done that with their own goals, with their own kind of specific ways. And it's just so individual. And things change over time. Of course they do.
Absolutely. So, and piggybacking on the back of that, start small. So like I came from high altitude mountaineering. So, you don't start with the biggest mountains out there. You start with your local hills, and anyone that lives locally in the Chilterns will know the Grind or Steps Hill and how steep that feels. And it's, I think, 60 meters high. But if you're climbing an 8,000 meter peak, you don't think of the actual top. You break it down into these little goals. So, setting micro goals is important, starting small. And I think the other thing as well, again, I work with young adults and teenagers in the outdoors. For example, climbing Kilimanjaro is a good one. And Coombe Hill, there we go. Chris mentioned Coombe Hill broke him in 2021. I think a few people probably find that, completely agree. I work with a lot of teenagers, young adults, want to climb Kilimanjaro. And that is, when they come to climb Kilimanjaro, that's their one goal. I'm like, no. That is not your one goal. Our first goal is getting on the hill safely and being safe and enjoying our time on the hill. And, the actual kind of summit is a kind of like a 10% goal. It's like the little bit that's in there if we don't do it, because we have no control over that. So I think that's another thing as well, kind of, understanding how much control you have over certain goals. You might not have a huge amount of control over it. You can control the process, but the outcome is hopefully will flow with it. But, you've got to think about that. So be ready for that emotionally as well on your journey. So we had someone talking about coffee and cake before, so rewarding your run. I think that's a really good thing to do, particularly this time of year. Whatever it is, whether it's just a hot shower, or a bath, or whatever, or coffee or cake. You're kind of reinforcing, aren't you? You're reinforcing that idea that you've done something that put yourself out there, and actually, you're going to come away, and when you go, it's part of that psychology. You're training yourself a little bit like we train our dogs in theory, that if they do something right, even though they don't want to do it, they get rewarded for it. And it's got to be a little bit careful that you don't kind of get into negative feedback there. But if you're doing the positive feedback side of things, that can really still work. I'm loving all these stories, by the way, of people with the hills that they've been on. So Linda talking about an Ullswater Trail 15K that seemed to go on forever with a rock staircase. Do keep sharing those stories in the chat as we talk about that. Talk about committing to an event, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Run the Wild events. I don't know if anyone signed up to our newsletter. We've got lots of different events this year. I'm not going to do a huge plug here for Run the Wild, but I will mention some of them. So half marathons, that we run this year, as well as also trips to the Alps, which we really hope we're all going to get out to. And as with all of these things, there's not really a time frame. There's not a time goal for our events because they're all guided. So I think that's quite nice, that it takes that pressure off and gives you the experience without having to get the pre-race nerves. So thinking about having a goal, and that plays back into, if you don't set something in your diary, there's a chance that it doesn't focus the mind so much. So that's why people set goals. Mark, you mentioned about adapting your plan to keep the strategy working. What do you think people could do in order to kind of help adapt themselves, maybe even with their mindset?
Yeah, I think that is such an important thing, really, because life throws lots of things at us in general. And remember, fitness or training is a form of stress. Now, I manage stress in theory, it's meant to be. And it's meant to be a progressive stress, which improves us. But hey, sometimes jobs, family, life, whatever takes over, you can't keep beating yourself up. And I've seen it many, many times, loads going on. So what's the one thing I do? I exercise really, really hard because I think that's de-stressing me. It took me a very long time to get into the minds of my kind of group of group fitness attendees that actually going easy on yourself is not a bad thing. You don't have to beat yourself up all the time, and actually use that kind of, relaxation, that easy session to de-stress, because you've got so much in life going on. And it's really, really interesting working with lots of groups of adults in fitness classes over the years. You become very, very attuned to people's behaviors and what's going on. And you don't even need to ask any questions. I mean, obviously, you do your due
Sounds
diligence.
like you've got a funny story that you need to tell us more.
There's many, many stories, and these are probably not. No, but you gain such an insight into people's, and you only have to look at people and how they're exercising and their kind of focus on it to realize kind of perhaps the phase that they're in life or what's going on in their own world. And you just need to make sure that people have the ability and the confidence to say, hey, do you know what? I'm going to ease off for a week or two, whatever it might be. I can feel a cold coming on. Hey, classic case, isn't it? Runners, injuries, run 3 times. Well, if it hurts after 3 times, it's really an injury. That kind of thing. Oh, if it's, I'm coughing and spluttering, but I'll go for a run, see how it is. We just need to have that ability to actually give ourselves a break sometimes, because that will benefit us long term. And again, it's kind of the cliche now of this call, but you've got to be able to enjoy it, because if you don't, it's not going to last for very long.
Yeah, agreed. And that's not to say that you'll necessarily enjoy it all the time, right?
No. You have to pick and choose your sessions. And believe me, there's nothing I like more as a coach to make people work hard at the right time. But again, that stress level, it doesn't mean, and again, some people can actually tolerate a lot of kind of what I call headbanger sessions, where you are really going for it. And some people that really, really works for, but others, it's a massive stress. And actually they'll only do one, a couple of times a week or something. So you just have to gauge the individual, how it works for you. And again, just sort of, match the two up, really.
I think that's a really important point. We've chatted about this before, haven't we? Where so you need to, as a runner, you need to assess what motivates you a little bit, even during a run. So are you the person where if someone shouts out to you as you're running during a race, come on, you've got this, you can do this? Or are you the person that you find that really patronizing and all you need is someone to run along next to you, just silently knowing that they're with you? You need to work out the kind of person that you are. And it might change even from event to event. because, you know, it just depends on your mindset, but almost understanding your own motivation, you know, emotional motivation, what's your little trigger, positively or negatively. You know, and I mean, I think I was talking about this with Karen the other day, and I went out for that muddy 5K, and I didn't really want to go. And she said, you know, you're talking to yourself about something. She said, if you don't want to go, don't go. And I was like, no, you can't say that to me. I am talking myself into this. So she was like, all right, okay, great. Go on, have a really good run. And I was like, that's what I needed. I needed that just little push over the edge to go out there, because believe it or not, even though I'm a trail running guy, it's my job, I work in the outdoors all the time, I am human, and I often don't also want to go out when it's cold, wet, dark, and in the mud. So, you know, it's you gotta find your own the thing that triggers you to push you over the edge to get out there. I think that's knowing yourself. I think it's all going to get very deep here, isn't it? Sort of kind of.
We'll try not to make it too deep, but that's so important when you're actually out there and doing it as well. And there's a plethora of things that you can do, implement, you know, into your running. But it's a classic case. And again, think of things. We're out running. Let's say you've entered a race or an event or whatever it might be, and you're pushing on. Have you actually ever prepared for that point where everything is against you? It could be as simple as, you know, the wind's in your face and it's teeming down with rain. Am I prepared to get through that? Or is that all of a sudden going to absorb all of my energies thinking about it at that point in time? And these are all things that you can do and think about when we're not running, to prepare for those moments. And, you know, little mantras, you know, visions, where am I? You know, I always used to use one when I was teaching cycling, that my sort of happy place, as I described it, when the going was tough and we were, you know, kind of sweating buckets and working really hard, was I was just on kind of an open road in the outback. The sun was beaming down on me. It was flat. It was just, and I got to the point where I can just click my fingers and take myself there, and everything else just disappears. And to me, that's sort of so important, with having that in your armory, in your toolbox when you are running, or doing any kind of, you know, physical exercise that's taking you beyond your kind of comfort zone. Is, what have I got that can trigger me and get me through this? And I've seen people, caps, Simon, you know, you're wearing one. Some people just spin their cap round. You know, it's quite a common one. Turn the cap round, peek at the back. The going's tough, and I'm now dialed in. Turn it back round. Hey, I'm relaxed.
18 music, you know. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's loads of little tricks that you can implement, and discover it along the way. You know, next time you're out, just have a think about it. You don't even need to be out on like a serious, you know, tempo run. But what's going on in the head sometimes? Is it the fact that I'm actually just ignoring everything? Is it the fact that I'm actually tuned in, listening to birds in the trees? Am I listening to my own breathing? Just what's going on. It's quite a nice thing to do, because if you can get to that point where you really understand your body, your technique, how relaxed am I, how my running form is, how my breathing, all of these things, and all of a sudden, you're kind of, you know, you're really in tune with yourself. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you know, we've got just a few more minutes. We've gone over a bit over time, but it's been really good to chat about this, and it's been great to see so much interactivity from everyone in the chat. Some really nice comments going on. Obviously, I'm sorry if we haven't mentioned them all. But there's a couple of other points I'm going to add into this, and obviously everyone's going to have their own little story, and it's really good. Like, keep adding them in there. We want to see them. Yes. So some cheesy hits, being 80s cheesy hits, seems to be a motivator. And you might be sitting there thinking, why are they talking so much about everything else other than running? As in, what's going on in here? But certainly during a lot of training, a lot of running, and when the going gets tough, it's all up here. This is the stuff that's going to fail you first, long before your legs do. So that's why we're kind of really unpacking this whole idea. But don't worry, before you get bored with this, we're going to finish soon. So don't panic. It would be wrong of me not to mention sort of getting support from running with friends or running with a group, or, like I've said, you know, running with Run the Wild. We've got lots of events. And yes, to answer, I think Chris has question earlier, if we have to go down to groups of 6, will we carry on? Yeah, Run the Wild. That's the beauty of Run the Wild, because we're a guided trail running holiday company, or events company. We carried on whenever the UK England Athletics allowed us to, whatever group sizes they were. We were even prepared to go to 1-to-1 at one point. So, we will continue as and when we can, but at the moment it looks like those regulations haven't changed yet. So hopefully we'll see you all soon. The other thing as well to mention is investing in your kit. So what does that mean? Much more likely to go out if you're keeping warm and you're keeping a bit dry and you're not slipping over in the mud, as in, you become a bit more confident in your ability to stay a little bit more comfortable. So, it's kind of in the outdoors, if you can keep things like tiredness, cold, wet, hunger, if you can keep those sort of 4 things at bay as much as possible, then you can kind of deal with the rest of what's going on. So, that's kind of something key to mention as well. And I think it was one of our viewers actually this evening is actually doing one of their events for charity. And please post it up in the chat, and we'll share that if that's you. But we did the Wild Christmas charity run and raised £805 for the Hospice of St Francis. So thanks for everyone that came along to that. But that could be your emotional connection. So we see that an awful lot. That could be the reason why that you're doing something. There's an accountability there. There's emotional connections, and again, so there's lots of other things like that to think about. We're going to wrap this up in a minute. I'm going to ask one more comment for our viewers before we go, and that is basically who's actually going to set a New Year's resolution. So are you going to actually set a New Year's resolution for this coming year? So do pop that in the chat if you are. Give us a thumbs up. I will just mention, obviously, on our site, so if you want to check out any of our running adventures, we do have a sold out 10K at the moment in January. We may add another date if I can persuade some of the guides to get out into the mud and wet weather with us. But we have got lots of events on. We've got another event in February, which has got spaces. Do check out our website. And also, if you'd like us to do another one of these sessions, let us know. You can either email us or you can pop it in the chat now if you'd be interested in another topic and what you would find interesting. We've got an amazing group of guides that we're connected with, and we can talk about most topics running related, possibly even non-running related as well. But otherwise, unless Mark, you've got anything else to say to add to this evening?
No, been marvelous joining you, and thank you so much for all the comments coming through. They've certainly made me chuckle. All I would say, we've said it many times, but enjoy what you do, and boy oh boy does it become a whole lot easier. And it really doesn't matter what that thing is in terms of your running goal. Ultra marathon, 20 minutes around the block, mix up your training, change it around, get kind of comfortable doing things that sometimes you wouldn't. We're always chasing that kind of 5, 10, 15, 20K. Well, actually, what about if I just went and ran up some hills for 15 minutes? That's a massive game changer. So don't think, it's always got to be bigger and better. It's got to be enjoyable. Put a big smile on your face. And at the moment, jump around and get muddy in puddles.
Absolutely, definitely. Mark, always a pleasure. Have a great new year, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us online this evening. I'll let you get back to whatever films are on at the moment, and have a very happy new year. And hopefully we'll see you at a Run the Wild event in 2022.
Take care all. See you.
Excellent. See you guys.